Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Our Life Beyond, the podcast where we explore how to navigate and hopefully thrive through some of life's biggest transitions. I'm your co-host, Scott Dibben, and I've teamed up with my great friend and mentor, Connie King, to share some stories, strategies, and insights that helped us adapt to the ever-changing seasons of our life.
Whether your life transition is divorce, death of a loved one, switching careers, moving to a new city, or just trying to figure out what the hell is next, we're with you every step of the way. But always remember, we're not therapists, just fellow travelers with a knack for finding humor in the chaos, and maybe some untraditional method of overcoming what life dishes out to us. Hopefully, you'll have fun embarking on this journey. So now, let's get started.
I want to give a special thank you to Habit Coffee for sponsoring us. So if you're local to Springfield, you're probably aware of the miserable construction at Highway 60 and Farm Road 125 heading into Rogersville.
Yeah, right in the midst of all that progress is the Habit Coffee Company, a fantastic local, vagina-owned business. They're more than just a coffee shop. They serve delicious, scratch-made breakfast and lunch options. They have a state and county-inspected kitchen, and they love catering events. While it might take a bit of extra effort to reach them right now, they're excited about the upcoming expansion when the highway reopens this fall. Support the Habit Coffee Company and enjoy their incredible offerings today.
Thank you so much, Habit Coffee.
Hi, Scott.
Well, hello, Connie. How are you today?
I'm great today. How are you?
Oh, I'm excited. I know what today is.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about divorce. And you were going to be highlighted in this because you were the one out of the two of us that has gone through a divorce.
That is true.
So, yeah, I think the other thing is that we will be talking in a series because divorce is such a long, drawn-out process. I think to keep our podcast less than 6 days long, we're going to have to break it down. So
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I agree. So keep me on the guardrails here, of course. So what are you thinking you want to cover today, Connie, just so I know where to stay?
Well, I was thinking about that, and I think the natural flow of it would be what caused you to get divorced? What was your origin story? Let's just start there.
Okay.
Why was it that you decided to get divorced?
Oh, great
What led
question,
to that?
Connie. Yeah. So I'm probably going to be a little more open on this podcast, but honestly, I was just fucking miserable, and honestly, I say me, I think we were miserable, and in the end of it, when I looked, were we even making our kids miserable? I didn't want
Oh,
that, and I know she definitely didn't want to be miserable or make the kids miserable. So, you know, I think as you're going on through life, if you're not careful, that groundhog effect happens. Every day's the same over and over. And I think that's where we was getting.
got it. And so I also want to preface something in all of this. You had said, you're going to be very blunt and
I
very
am.
open, and you and I have been friends for a long time, and you have always been so aware of not speaking badly about not your divorce, but about your ex.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I can appreciate that because I know that a lot of people will take the story and adhere it to your ex when that's really not the case. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No.
You have a lot of respect for your ex. It was just the situation that happened that was
So
ugly and not good.
I want to say I'm never going to say anything bad about my ex. My ex was a great wife, a great mother, much better at all of that than I was, on the opposite side, of course. Divorces don't happen because somebody's bad. I don't believe. I think it happens because people's life changes. And not only that, people's life changes or they get into ruts. And I do believe that if you're in a rut and it's a rut that's making you or somebody in that relationship, the other person, miserable, you got to figure out a way to get fucking out of that rut. And I just couldn't do it.
Well, how long had you guys been together?
Yeah, we'd been together. So yeah, right after high school, it's one of those. I right out of high school is it was a thing to where I thought I needed to get a job, married, and kids and get everything going because that was just, we were from a small Midwest town and that's just the way it was. You either went to school
Yeah.
or got married.
Yeah,
But
that's what we did.
yeah, but me being as sophisticated as I am, and you know this about me, I spent 5 years living with her, dating, and in this relationship there was a stepson already, so brought the stepson into the relationship. He was about, I want to say 3 when I started dating her, and then we married about 5 years later. But oh, you asked how long? So after after we ended up getting married, it was an additional 23 years, so a long time. And once again, I have so much respect for her. I really truly do.
So, with that being said, the divorce itself was just a situation. So, tell us more about that groundhog effect, that groundhog day effect, as you called it.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people that are married have it, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I don't want to get people beating me up saying, not every day can be a different day. It can't. But, you know, we got into such a rut. Every day was the exact same. And I can tell you, I had a stressful job. So, I'm at work and I've got meetings all day and I'm either getting my ass chewed out all day by somebody else or I'm chewing somebody else's ass. And that is Groundhog Day. It really is for me. The job I was in an upper management job. It was just every day's the same. You have 14 meetings. It seems like you get out of that. You're stressed. You're full of energy. I say it, energy, you're almost wore out, but you've got this anxiety, I guess you'd say. And then when you go home, you either want to relax or you want to have something there. But when I went home, it was the same thing every day. You get home, you make sure the kids are okay, you cook, you clean the house a little bit, you watch a little bit of TV, you may go sit on the back deck and you go to bed and rinse and repeat every day. And what I started noticing was I think we were both getting miserable. Every Friday was the same, pull up, pick me up, let's go eat. We'd come home at 9:30, we'd watch TV, we'd go to bed. It was so repetitive. And once again, I don't want everybody beating me up because I know that life cannot be every day a different day, but you have to have much more, you have to have better communication and you have to really have open communication and joy and have a lot of dialogue during that time. And it wasn't that way. It was, let's sit in front of the TV and watch TV tonight.
So, I'm going to take you into a place that I know you are not comfortable with because we're going to have to start
Oh,
talking
shit.
about some emotions instead of
I
putting
hate
this in a
this.
spreadsheet. I know, a spreadsheet. So, when you say, because people are going to beat you up
I
because
know
we
they
all
are.
live this, when we live this life of, we get off work, we come home, your wife was doing the exact same thing. So
Great person.
emotionally, what was it that you needed? And what was it, do you think, that she needed that the two of you weren't getting?
Yeah. Excuse me.
Emotionally, let's stick with the emotion for a minute.
So, and that's a great point. Excuse me. So, whenever she'd come home, she had a different set of work topics and she would want to work through those. I had a different set of work topics that I would basically work through. And what we figured out, honestly, is I don't know if the other was really helping with the problems of the day. Completely different worlds, completely different problems. And the communication, like whenever she'd present problems, I mean, honestly, to me, they seemed simple. I'm like, well, this, and this is what I suggest. And I know it wasn't that simple. I wouldn't dig into how do you feel about that? And I didn't dig deep into that. I didn't. But on the other side, also the issues I had whenever I would try to bring up or have those open communications, there really wasn't a lot of excitement or interest in digging into those and kind of helping me through it. So what happens, what happens with everybody is I ended up having a friend that you end up working those through. And and he's still a best friend of mine today, but you end up working all of that through your friends and pretty soon she was doing the same thing on her side with a coworker of hers, and pretty soon you're just living together.
So based on what you say, it sounds like neither of you felt like the other one cared that much about what the other was going to, or that was the
Well,
impression.
yeah, and I'm going to give you some instances, and this sounds shitty on both of our parts. It really will, but things would happen at her work, and I mean things that I should be bragging or I should be celebrating her for that didn't happen, and there was probably several of those. I can think of a couple, but even at my work, I know I'd get promoted, and I mean, I was making huge gains money wise, huge gains, and not once was that even voiced to me. There was never a time that she said, "I'm proud of you." Man, this is great. I can't even imagine that, you went from where you're at to where you are. But when I say that, it's easy for me to say that from my side, but I know I did the same thing to her because she owned her business. And I look back today and I'm like, I don't even know if I really, complimented her and talked about how tough that was. So both of us just kind of lived in our own world, and we didn't have that communication.
So did you guys have an amicable divorce?
Sort of, yes. In the end, it was amicable, I guess. But so what happened? We were once again at 23 years in. Let me kind of back up and explain why it happened, I guess. So my son, so we had a son and a stepson, of course. So two sons. My son, which was the youngest, uh, was going to college, and the job that I had was about a 60-mile commute, about 1 hour up and 1 hour back every day, and I did that for about 3 years, and my son was getting ready to go to school, and where we lived, there was not a college. When I say school, college. There wasn't a college, so he was moving up to this larger town to go to college, and since that's where my job was, and it wasn't just me, I mean, people may say it was, but it wasn't. Both of us just decided we were going to move up here. That way he had a place to stay. He didn't have to stay in a dorm. I mean, he was not a social butterfly. So we wanted to kind of nurture him, especially in this big transition of going to college. So we moved up here. I didn't think it was going to be a huge transition on her as big as it was because it wasn't on me, but I also had people and friends up here. But I'd been driving back and forth for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. So we reversed roles. But in that, what I told her was, let's start, you're at 4 days a week of working right now. Let's go down to 3 or 2. I know that where my position is going to go. I know the wages I'm going to do. So let's start, you know, dwindling your time down there to where you're not working as much, and you can just stay up here. The problem that we had was her friends were really in that other town. My friends were up here and down there, but her friends were there. So the time that she spent up here, and she loved it up here. She really did in the bigger town, but she didn't have that friend base. So I think that was a lot of the issues that we started having was on her days off, and she was up in this town, and we had this beautiful house, and we had a kid in school. As you can imagine, a kid in school is not running around with their parents anymore in college. It got to be lonely for her. Now, for me,
Mhm.
was it lonely? Hell no, it's not lonely because I'm working. As soon as I get off work, the job I had, I either traveled a lot or I would be entertaining. We'd have clients or we would have some of our software vendors come in. So there was a lot of me either going out for drinks and dinner or traveling. And I think that even put a bigger void in between us.
Got it. Was she also, so you say she was lonely, but do you think she was angry also after, I know women go through this where when we get angry, we start doing this thing where we go, I moved up here just for him and he's not entertaining me. Not in those
Nah.
words, but you don't feel like that had anything to do with it. It was just her loneliness.
Well, no, because she moved up here for me, the kids, for her even. I mean, she wouldn't have blamed me for that, and she really wouldn't have. But I want to ask you a question as a woman. I mean, think about it. Both of us had worked or had lived in one town our whole life, and it was 13,000 is the population. I mean, a very small town. We moved to a town of 200,000. I move up there with a whole base of people that I can go golf with, that I can go have drinks with, that I've got a friend base. Now, it's not the same type of friend base that the couple's friend base, but I had people. She did not have that. So when she moved up here, she really kind of had nobody. So, she relied more on me, and I needed time with clients and with prospects and whatever it would be that I'm, out there trying to do for work. So I'm out here doing my thing, and I think she felt like I was leaving her behind.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was asking, was she angry? And you put it better than I did. I would be angry because I would feel that same way. I would feel like,
So
listen,
I
and
love that. So what would you, if you were in that situation, Connie, because you're a strong woman, you're not going to take a lot of that without giving some of it back. What would you have done in her shoes?
well, I would have made life miserable probably. Um, I I'm being very honest in this respect because I know that when I get hurt, and that's exactly what that felt like, is that you were leaving her behind so she would have been hurt. So
She was.
if I had been hurt, I would have had like those little just notches, in my lipstick case, I guess is the best way to put it, because I would be angry. I'd be like, oh, he thinks his client's more important than me. Oh, he thinks, going out to entertain is more important than me. Oh, he thinks that golfing is more important to me than me. And when you become unhappy and that snowball starts happening, you get ugly because you're
Yeah.
hurt, and if she did not get ugly, kudos to her. If she was just lonely and sad, then she was a different woman than I am.
Well,
But tell me what was her reaction at that point then?
so I think the reaction, and I think what happened, that's where we got more and more distant. And I know I'm sounding like a kind of an ass on my side because I'm going out and doing all this stuff without her, but that was part of my job. So as I escalated up through my positions, I mean, I'll tell you, I'm not going to deny I am very career focused. I mean, I've even changed jobs since then, of course. But my thing is I wanted to be successful. My upbringing was nobody was, and I say nobody, everybody in my family was successful to a certain point, but not at a professional level to where, um, you know, they were in an office and everything else. So I wanted to be that person. And I knew that from probably the age of 7, 6, I don't know. I knew where I wanted to go in life. So I, I while I did, I guess, share that with her, I don't think she knew where this was going and how lonely it could be. Now, if we would have done exactly what we were doing up in this bigger town and a smaller town, she had a great friend base. She could have went out to eat with one of her friends, and she probably could have went to movies with somebody. You know what I mean? She could have at least filled some of that time. The problem was is where we were at. So you asked the question of how she reached out a lot, and and this is where I am an ass about it. She reached out and she's like, "This isn't working for me. I'm having anxiety. I'm struggling. This is not, I'm not happy. I'm not happy." So, me being a guy, my first thing is, okay, we got to fix this because I'm a fixer and I know I shouldn't be. You listen instead of fixing, and I've learned that now. But instead of that, I'm like, okay, we just need to put the house up for sale. Let's move back to Lebanon because where we lived, because what I can do is I can keep traveling like I was, and I can still do the same things I was doing. The problem was, we were facing a lot of transitions. We were facing both empty nest and me transitioning through jobs and our relationship changing. So if we would have moved back to the smaller town, we would have, I'm not saying lost our kids, both of them were up here, but we would not have had the same amount of time with them. So, and that was very important to her. So she's like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. So it was rough for me because I'm like, okay, you don't want to move back, but you want to stay here, but you're not happy with the way I am. And at one point, I know one statement that she made to me, I wish we could go back 5 years. Of course, in my mind, that meant, okay, 5 years ago, I was in a different position. I made about a third of the money. I couldn't afford the house that we're in right now. I know that, life's not going to change as big as it was. And I know that my career would not be going any farther. And that wasn't something I was willing to do. I didn't want to back up 5 years. But in her mind, which is fair to her, 5 years, she looked back 5 years and she's like, we had a perfect life then. But I want to also, you know, say that 5 years ago we had two kids living in the house and we had things that we had to do. But when your kids are of a certain age, you shouldn't have to have those exact same routines.
So I'm going to call you out a little bit on this because
Of
I'm
course
sure
you
you
will.
have, yeah, you've seen those, oh, the TikTok or Instagram or Facebook videos, and it's a man who's sitting there talking to a therapist saying, "I have no idea why she left," where in the years previous, the wife was telling him the little things, "I'm not happy, I'm not this, I'm not that." Do you when you look back, because you said something, she's like, "I wish we could just go back 5 years," because she was completely happy with that.
Yes.
That was her sweet spot. Do you think that how do I wanna put it? Because I realize there's transition in your life after when she made that statement. But do you think that she was, telling you, like, things earlier than, like, when she said that 5 years? In that 5 years, do you think she was telling you ways to make her happy?
Well, yeah, and that is a good point. I think that if, and it's so much easier. I'm going to say this, Connie. So much easier me sitting here looking back and saying what I did wrong.
Right.
And I will. I'll sit here and tell you everything I did wrong, which is an enormous amount. But when you're in that, if I would have looked back, it's not that she wanted to go back 5 years. What happened 5 years before that? I got off every day at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock because I had a routine office job. I, you know, I was in an engineering position at a certain time. I left every day. I say that. I mean, overtime and a few other things, but also I was 2 miles away from her. I could go to lunch occasionally. I could go over there and bring her a tea at lunch. You know what I mean? I could do the little things. That wasn't going to happen because she was 60 miles away. The position I was in was meeting after meeting. It was a different type of position. And I didn't get off at 5 every day. And throughout the day, I would have my phone turned off. And at the end of the day, I would see I missed 3 or 4 messages from her. But I can tell you from 8 o'clock till at least 1, I'm either in meeting after meeting or I'm trying to put together something to present to executive team, or I'm trying to figure out what a problem is that we're having with a customer. So the thing is, my job had changed so much that I don't know that I could have ever explained to her how much it changed, because in her mind I was no longer doing the things I used to do. And I wasn't even keeping up with her, basically through a message or phones. So she just felt like work was more important.
So that's the great question. Do you feel like you were putting work before her, or because I think this is something men and women really differ on. Do you feel like you were putting work before her, or do you feel like you were working hard for your family?
So, a little bit of both. I was brand new into a position for a while, so I was diving deep and I wanted to make everybody happy. So I was putting work first. I'd be at home. I had probably 50 people underneath me travel around the US, and it would be nothing at 8 o'clock for me to get on the phone because somebody's traveling and missing a plane. And can I get a hotel for the night? Can I do this? And I've got to approve all this stuff. Once again, it is part of my job. In this company, we didn't have a lot of structure to put anybody under me at the beginning. At the end, we did. So, but in the beginning, there was a lot of time being spent on my job when I can tell you when I was at home, if my phone dinged and I looked down at a message, I'm like, oh shit, she's gonna pissed about this. Should she have been? Probably, but it was part of my job. Um, and was I doing it for my family? I grew up very poor, Connie. I know you didn't grow up rich. So, my one of the big things for me is I wanted to make the most out of what I could for my kids, for not only my kids, for her also. I wanted to go do big vacations. I wanted to have a nice house. I wanted to have nice cars. I wanted to, I wanted everything. And part of having everything is really working your ass off. So I'm not going to say that I did it just for me because I'm telling you, I did it for them too. I mean, at the end, we had a great, beautiful, beautiful house. We had two brand new cars. Our kids had cars that were paid for. Everything was good money wise. It's just we couldn't find the transition from that to being a good couple.
And what do you think she would say about all of this? If she were here, what would she say about it?
A lot of things I think she would say she was lonely as hell,
Mhm.
that I wasn't listening to her,
Okay.
that if I was to get a phone or if something was to happen at work and if there was something she needed, she would question which would come first and she would think it would be work. And honestly, at that point in time, it probably would have been work.
Got it.
I traveled, and whenever I'd travel, I would get anxiety when I traveled. I would go travel, and damn it, every time, and I don't know how this happened, Connie. I would travel once, and a toilet would quit working. As far as trying to get the water, I'm like, just shut the valve off. I'll fix it when I get home. And then the garbage disposal would be leaking. I'm like, every time I fucking travel, something happens. And I was beginning to think every time I traveled, somebody's tearing stuff up just to make me feel bad. But I'm on the road. So one of them, I was up in Wisconsin and we had acquired another company. And I'm up here. I mean, imagine I'm up and I'm focusing on, I've got, I want to say 20 new employees up there. I'm trying to coach them on why we're going to be the greatest company they've worked for because we just acquired this company. And I'm trying to make them feel like they're important and that we're going to bring them into a family environment, which we did, and we were that type of company. But also, I'm looking down and I'm getting 5 messages about this fucking toilet. And, of course, when you're not here, and, I hate where you work. I mean, all this shit. So I'm in the middle of just so much at that point.
So that seems to be this is the worst way to put it, but the marriage condition, kind of like the human condition, but the marriage condition, because I know that Rob and I went through that where there were so many times I thought he was putting work before me. I was angry. I mean, it led to some really terrible years in our marriage. And so, what gets you to the point of actually making the decision to divorce? Where do you go, this has to stop? It's
Well,
done. I'm done.
there was a few stages to it. And man, piss poor decisions on my behalf. Really piss poor decisions on my behalf. But um, so she was driving back and forth, and I was traveling, all this stuff happening. And I knew she had friends in the other town. So the first thing I said, she's unhappy, I'm unhappy. I'm like, let's get an additional apartment, just a small apartment down in the small town that's an hour away. We had friends that had plenty of rentals. I talked to him. He gave me a great deal on an apartment. I'm like, put a TV, put everything in there. Everything's good. I'm like, just stay down there a few days through the week. You're not having to drive an hour up and an hour down. Go have dinner with your friends. Go do the stuff. And once again, this is me, a guy thinking I'm going to fix everything. And I fixed absolutely nothing. So we get this in place and I'm pretty proud of myself. But that made it even worse because I'm gonna put myself in her shoes. So she's in this apartment down there. Maybe she went and ate with one of her friends, which is great. She went out, at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock and had dinner. She comes back in at 8:30. She calls me and I don't answer. calls me at 9. I don't answer. Calls me at 9:30, and I send her a message, "Hey, I'll call you back. I'm with a vendor at a bar here in town, and we're going through we're going through a bunch of big changes that's gonna be happening the next year." And she, by the time I get home and I message her, she's like, "I'm done for the night. I don't wanna talk to you." So
God, she's so hurt and so lonely. I can already tell.
and I am an ass about it, but I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about all this." So I thought that was going to work. And you asked how it all come to an end. I thought that was going to work. It absolutely didn't work. So then we come up and we're, at this point we're arguing. And let me just say, when we argued, we didn't argue in front of the kids. We really didn't. And that's another subject I do want to talk about, is putting kids in the middle of shit. If people are doing that, quit. That is just not right. But
Yeah,
as
that's
far
going to
as your
be
divorce.
that's going to be another one because
Okay.
as divorce comes through, I mean, we have a male perspective right now, but I want to get a female perspective also. So we'll have some
Okay.
guests on here. But yes, I want to, you were arguing, not in front of
So
the kids. What else happened?
yeah, so she was living part-time, and on the weekends we were all together. I say on the weekends, probably 4 days out of the week we were together at the larger town. And what was great at the larger town, there's always something to do. You can always go find something, and she did enjoy that. She did. Um, so a lot more arguing. It got a lot more intensive. I mean, there'd be arguing to where she'd say, "You know what?" And she would pack some shit and say, I'm going back down to that small town in the middle of the week or on the weekend." So it's getting bad, as you can imagine. We'd come together, and of a day it'd be great, and of a night, I'd get a message, or once again, it may not even be that. We would just get into a discussion about something, and we would get into an argument, and she'd like, "All right, I'm not doing this. I'm going to go back down there." So it got bad enough that I'm like, "Hey, you know what? I feel like you're missing a lot of the time with our kids up here in the bigger town. So you know what?" I said, "Maybe we do need to try a trial separation. So you pick the days you want. You can be in the nice house in the big town, and I'll switch places. I'll go down," because I still had friends in the small town. So what we would do, and we weren't mean about it, we weren't hateful about it. We'd have dinners, and I'd come down or to the small town. We'd have dinner and everything, and I'd say, "Hey, I'm going to stay here for the next couple nights," and I'd work from there, and she'd be at the next or at the other house. What I was trying to do is giving her some. What I was trying to do was give both of us a little bit of room to, miss that other person, or to, I don't know, see the other person's. I don't know if I can answer why. I think more than anything, are we going to miss each other? And we did to a certain point, but there was just a point in time when she said, "Okay, this isn't working for me either. This is stupid." And what we ended up at that point in time, I'm like, "Okay, what do we do? Do we actually do a separation? We can do just a actual legal separation if you want, and then give ourselves both some time and figure it out." And at that point, she's like, "You know what? I don't want to do a legal separation because that's stupid. If we're going to do anything, let's just get a divorce." That's when we decided we were getting a
Good.
divorce. I mean, we
Wow.
just it went from that to let's get a divorce. We got one lawyer, and we shared the lawyer. And I'm going to give her kudos for this too. We sat down, and which we didn't have kids to negotiate what days, and we didn't have all of that, which we were very fortunate because the kid was in college, the youngest, and the other one was, he had his own life. Um, what we did instead is we sat down and figured out, okay, we're going to sell the house. It's pretty simple. Sell the house, and we're going to split stuff. Here's the retirement. What are we going to do here? We've got a bank account, a savings account. What are we doing here? What are we doing car wise? And we kind of had it all ironed out. I went to the lawyer and I said, "This is what we want to do." And believe it or not, even after 23 years, Connie, that's 3 months later, we're divorced.
Hol Holy shit. So when I asked you if it was amicable, I'm gonna say this, there are not many people who can do that. So by the time you guys had decided it was or maybe by the time that she had said, "I want a divorce," and had decided, she was so done that she was like, okay, let's just be easy from here on out. Do you think that's how that went down? I can't even
Yeah. She was wore
imagine.
out and very
Yeah.
hurt. She was hurt
Yep.
and she was wore out. I mean, she had tried, and I do know she had tried. We didn't get into, she was going to therapy at that time, and to even make myself sound like more of an ass, she had had a person pass away, so she was trying to get over some of that, an immediate family member, and she had been going for a while, and when we moved up here, she moved to I think she moved to a different therapist up where we lived, and she'd been going for about 6 or 7 months, probably, trying to get over that because she had a lot of guilt. And the reason of the guilt is because, you know, we always hear the story about crying wolf. Well, the person would always cry wolf about how they felt bad, you know what I mean? And the next thing we know, it is something tragic. And
Oh,
you feel guilty because you didn't listen. That one time that you should have listened when that had happened 100 times. But I'm not gonna get into specifics of that, but she had a lot of guilt and was going to therapy, and the next thing I know, she comes home one day, and she's like, "Okay, I've talked to the therapist. You need to come in with me. We need to do marriage counseling." And I'm like, "Whoa, hold on, hold on. You need to figure this stuff out." And as a guy, I'm just gonna tell you right now, if you've been going to a therapist for 6 months, I feel like you've probably told the whole history of everything happening along the way. I feel like I'm coming into a minefield. I'm not going to walk into that environment and feel like that I'm just going to. I mean, I felt like, okay, you're going to bring me in here and all this therapist and you are going to do start critiquing everything I've done wrong instead of anything I've done right.
okay. And then she got hurt because you wouldn't go to the therapist, correct?
Yeah, I'm like, I never said I wouldn't, but I said, you really figure out what you're in the middle of first. I said, let's get that figured out. And I don't want to get into a lot of specifics, but she was still having a lot of problems around that. She would have a lot of anxiety, a lot of feelings around that she needed to process. I felt like she was trying to tackle everything at once.
Oh,
And me
okay.
as a guy, I'm like, and I'll tell you, I was going to stick. I felt like I was going to stick with her and going to do all this stuff. And the thing is, I look back now and I'm like, man, everything that kind of played out, I didn't expect a lot of the responses. I'm like, hey, let's get separate places. This is gonna, this will make things better. Let's do this. And there just come a point that we both together just said, no, no, we've went too far. This is just too far.
Interesting. And so, looking back, because you've talked about how you went to the attorney, it was a fairly easy divorce. Looking back, I have two questions, and one's going to be very brutal, but I want you to be very honest about it. First question is, if you could go back and do it differently, would you? Not
Uh,
what would you do differently? It's would
okay.
you? Or how do you feel about your life now?
Okay. I love both those questions. The first one, if I could go back, would I do things differently? Yes, I would absolutely do things differently. It would not change where we're at today. We were on different paths. Um, I may have been, I may have not been the smartest person at that time to make a great decision to go one direction and not the other. But I can tell you right now, the path I'm on, what I'm doing now, it would not have fit. Every day that I live today is different. It would not fit the routine that she would need. It just wouldn't. We are two completely different people. And I want to say, I want to caution everybody out there, you know, don't think that in the beginning we thought this. We were amazing in the beginning, but when you are 19 years old and you start out with somebody, by the time you get to 50, think of how different you are. Do you grow together or apart? Did you go a different direction than that other person? And can you come together? People can blame me or her, and it would be more on me, but we were going different directions. And I don't think no matter what I did, the end was going to be the same. I just wish that I would have tried a few things to prove that I was trying because I didn't.
Oh, okay. I understand that. But ultimately, in that hindsight, you go, this was going to happen no matter what because we are
Yes.
just two different people. And you don't think you could have, either of you were willing to change or be, do what you needed to make it happen, correct?
I don't see how.
Yeah.
And you asked, what does my life look like? Was it what my life looked like today, or what was it?
So I guess that was one question in and of itself. Like, not would you go back and change what you did, but when you look back, are you happier? How
Yes.
do I put this? Like,
Did I
looking
make the
back,
right choice?
right? Yes. Did you make the right choice? And your answer is yes, you did
Yes.
because you were on different paths, correct?
Yes. You know, and we're going to talk about this on future episodes, but of course I've dated. I found someone now that, I mean, she's basically a female version of me. And you know that, Connie, you know her.
Yeah.
Independence is a big thing. Me being able to do my thing. I mean, it's, I, ne- I am where I'm at and I need to be where I'm at. I'm happy where I'm at. But I also want to say we've got so many segments in here. The path from getting from that divorce to where I'm at today, there is so much time in there. I mean, I wanna later in different episodes talk about, you know, what did that look like? Because it was an emotional roller coaster, with the friends I had then and what happened, all of the things getting to today. Because I'm telling you right now, anybody out there that's even thinking about a divorce, the divorce is the easiest part. That sounds stupid. I don't care that if you got to give 80% of your money away. Fuck that. Divorce is the easiest point. When you
Really?
get out of
Because
that.
I think we need to have people on here who the divorce was the hardest part, and then afterwards the freedom was beautiful and easy because I know that's a lot of what people go through is they go through a just really brutal, ugly, horrible thing, and once they get out of it, they're like, "Oh, I see the light."
Well, I guess everybody sees that different, but I
Yeah.
mean, to give you just a snippet of a few things. I mean, think about all the friends that you're sharing that you're separating out. Think about, you're having to explain things to the kids. Think about, um, you come in that next night and uh, you're going to end up buying a house or moving into an apartment. I mean, every decision. And I can tell you right now, I was very good at the decisions I had to make, and I was piss poor at the decision she made. But I didn't think that. So when I went and bought something, I'm like, this is not going to be a big deal. But guess what? It was a big damn deal because I had no idea what the hell I was doing.
You know what I
So,
love about this is that we get the male perspective because I do think that men come at this as the decision maker, the person who, is trying to solve those problems, where women come at it with a much more emotional, most of the time, a much more emotional set of cards in front of them. And so I think it's so beautiful to hear your side of the story because where I sit here and I'm thinking, oh man, you know, how did you not see that she was hurt? I also went through where I didn't go through divorce. I also went through a relationship where the whole time I was going, why do you not see that I'm just hurt? So I think this is such a beautiful part of a divorce story because I think people are going to learn, women will learn what their husbands are trying to do or what their partners are trying to do. They're not trying to sabotage you. They're not trying to make you feel bad. They're trying to do the best thing. And, some of their decisions just don't reflect your feelings on it.
and one thing I want to, before we close, and I know we've got maybe a few more things to cover. I'm not sure. That's up to you, but don't put your kids in the middle of this. And I was fortunate. I mean, my kids were older, but not only that, me and my ex, neither one of us put the kids in. And when I say put your kids in it, I have watched so many divorces, maybe the younger kids, but where when the kids go to one house, they bag talk the other one, or they talk about, especially after they get married to somebody else. Think about your kid and what you're doing to them. If you're doing that, you are quit fucking doing that, because that is not fair to your kid. Your kid has to grow up, figure out what a real relationship looks like. And I don't know, if you're doing that, you're not teaching your kid anything but misery, in my opinion, for any relationship they're going to have in the future.
And I agree with you completely as a child of divorce. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the other thing is just sometimes you have to swallow your hurt and your pride and your ego. Sometimes, yeah, that other person hurt you and it's horrible and miserable. But if you can shower your children with showing them how to be respectful and loving, even in the midst of that pain, that's an example to set for them. And so I think that also is something that
Yeah.
I would wish for parents to do. I mean, I can't control people, but boy, oh boy, as a child of divorce, that's exactly right. Does your son ever talk about that? Does he ever talk about, I didn't know what was coming because you guys were quiet about it. I never saw you fight. Does he ever say anything about that?
No, I mean, he, like any kid, that they both of them would see fights. You know, I've got great kids. I really do. And um, they both understood. They both noticed, especially my son, the youngest one, because he was around us more at the end, noticed that we were not happy. He ended up moving in with me because I was in the town that he was going to school. We have an absolute amazing relationship, and not because of her, but I've got a better relationship than I ever had, because it's different. It's like, whenever you don't rely on the other parent to do something, like, hey, has he got a doctor? I take care of all, or, for a small period of time, I was taking care of all that. Did he go to the doctor? Did he go to the dentist? Did he get, whatever that is? Hey, did he get his books for school? And even though he's in college, and I know he was doing a lot of that himself, but I didn't have to worry about that whenever we were together. So, you know, it's terrible, terrible to say, but I communicated far more with him when I divorced. We have got an amazing relationship. We go on a trip every year together. We have a blast. We are friends, but I also, I think I coach him through life and try to help him figure out what's next for him. It Me being happy has made my relationship with him a lot better. And I'm going to say, on the other side, he's got a great relationship with her. He visits all the time. He's living on his own now, of course, because he's not with me any longer, but I think he is a well-adjusted person. But I can tell you, she doesn't beat me up in front of him. I will never beat her up, because there's no reason to do that. That's his mom and I'm his dad. And treat that other person with a little bit of respect when you're around the kids.
Well, and truth be, you don't beat her up ever. In the time that I've known you, you have had nothing bad to say about her, actually. So I want to commend you for that. But to close this out, can you give me three tidbits of advice that you would give to people going through a divorce?
Sure. Well, the first one, put the kids first. Um, you know, Anger, no matter how pissed off you're at the other person, no matter what you want to say, don't say it while the kids are around, or make the kids feel that, because then they feel like they've got to take one side or the other. So seriously, guys, take the kids out of the equation. That's no fair to them. Don't use them as, you know, bargaining chips back and forth, because that's complete bullshit if you're doing that. Second
Okay.
thing, that is the person you married. I don't care who the fuck you are, treat them with respect. You may not like them at that point in time, but at one, you go back, they were the one you picked. And what I mean by that is, appreciate what they done for you in the past and have a little bit of respect. You can argue, but don't get on Facebook and be posting about, and I'm telling you, Connie, I see it all. Don't be posting, don't be trying to get everybody to hate on them and take your side. I mean, We're all grown-ass adults. Let's not act like middle schoolers. And the third thing is sit down with that person, even if I don't care, let's say that there was an affair in it or whatever. It I know it's gonna be rough. I absolutely know it's gonna be rough. But sit down with the person, try and make a plan. Be an adult. You have to be, because guess what? Your life is gonna be better. Both your lives are gonna be better afterwards. Sit down as an adult and try and figure out what you guys need out of the divorce and how you can do this. Because if you go to court and you let all the lawyers decide, everybody's going to be paying $20,000 or $30,000 a person, and then a judge is going to decide. Somebody's going to be pissed off. Figure it out together. You started this shit together. Figure it out in the end together, and then go to the court and say, guess what? We have made a decision. My divorce cost me less than $1,500 total, and that would have been mine and hers together.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that is just unheard of in this day and age.
Yeah. Well, lawyers
So
don't like that, I don't think, but yeah,
we won't be sponsored by an attorney anytime soon after
probably
this
not.
story. Well, I appreciate you telling us that story. And I truly, because divorce affects so many people, I truly want to have more stories and the way people handled their stories on here. And, I know there's so many people out there, and I don't want them to feel like they're doing it alone. I think that's the big thing. And I think we get both men and women on here and see how different it is. How would you feel about that?
Yeah, I would love it. I mean, I can tell you right now, I looked at the statistics out there today just because I knew I was doing this, and 69% of the people that divorce, the person that initiates it is the female, 31% is men in America. I would love to see the female, I know why I initiated the divorce. I say initiated, it was both of us, but why I was the one that, in a sense, was formulating the plan. I would love to get a woman's view on why they were.
Absolutely. I would love to hear different sides of a story.
And
So
we definitely know people that have went through divorce, so hopefully we can find someone willing to talk about it.
we do. So, well, next time, let's try and get somebody else on here that has done it, whether it be, I know we can get another man on here and,
Yeah. Yeah.
we can kind of do that. So,
Okay.
yeah. Well,
sounds great.
I hope this helped somebody. I hope they heard something that, made them feel better or understand more about their situation. And I'm really happy that it came from you, Scott, from a more logical standpoint rather than an emotional standpoint. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Connie.
All right. Well, we will talk to you next week, and I hope everybody has a great week. See you.
Yeah. Have a great week. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Our Life Beyond. We really hope that you found our discussion insightful and inspiring, or at least brought a smile to your day. If you did enjoy this episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform and leave us a review. For more information, resources, or show notes, visit our website at ourlifebeyond.com. You can also follow us on social media. Search for us on Facebook at Our Life Beyond. We would love to hear from you, our listeners, so feel free to reach out with your questions, comments, or suggestions through our Contact Us page at ourlifebeyond.com or on social media. And once again, thank you for joining us on this journey. Till next time, remember, life beyond any challenge is possible, and we're here to navigate it with you. Stay strong, stay positive, and keep moving forward.